Elephant Man Podcast Network, Grown Man Conversations dealing with elephants in the room. It's your man DB. Like, subscribe, share, hit the notification bell so you can know when new material coming out. What's going on, family? Hopefully that you are clothed and in your right mind. You are blessed and highly favored. This is the day that Yahweh has made. We will rejoice and be glad in it. And we got a lot to be thankful for and be grateful for. It's a lot of things that's been going on over the last couple of years. 2000, 2001, and 2020, 2021. I went back 10 years, going into 2022, right? We had a lot going on. So we praying and that you are blessed and the clothing in your right mind, and we're different. I can say that. I can say that we are different as a people. I can say that we are different as a nation. I can say that we are different as Israel. I can say that we're different as people of the Most High. We are different. We're not the same. And so even going in with this new variant and different things going on, man, we are different. We're in a different headspace. You know what I mean? And so we're not going to be fearful. You know, his perfect love cast out fear. His shalom, his perfect love cast out fear. We're not going to be fearful of what man can do to us or what man can plot and try to do to us, you know, but we're going to keep looking toward the hills, which comes our help. Our help comes from the Most High. So that being said, keep your head up and keep your ear open to the things of the Most High. Yo, I just wanted to just share a few things with you guys. I've been reading and listening. Audiobooks is really, really awesome. I don't know if you got a subscription to Script, but it's very, very good, right? Or Kindle reader or something like that. But audiobooks and ebooks are very, very good, man. You can get different things out of them. I've been reading or listening to audiobook and reading. My man's right here. His name is Mr. Jason Wilson. He's from Detroit. He got a Cave of Dulam. He got he's a sensei, but he's also an author. He got a book that came out, Battle Cry, Waging and Winning the War Within, the Inner Man, right? So we're gonna glean on some of his stuff on today. Need you to be patient. We're gonna listen. We're gonna listen to some of the wisdom that he got to teach in these books. And you can also go on Amazon and a lot of different spots and spaces to get it. Jason Wilson, Battle Cry, Waging and Winning the War Within. But I'm gonna play a little excerpt of his site, his YouTube site. And so let's get that going, and then I'm gonna go listen to some of this audio book. This is all his copyrighted material, so it's not my material, it's his material. So we won't want nobody folk come looking for me. All right, let's play it. Let's check it out. Check it out.
Please stop running from yourself. I can't tell you how many messages I receive from men asking me how to wage and win the war within themselves. And almost always when I tell them to run toward the battle instead of away from it, our communication goes cold. Let me be real with you, my brothers. No war is ever won without a fight. And the real fight starts before you form your fist, before you fire the bullets, before you speak the words. It's imperative that you learn how to process what you're feeling before the negative thoughts become toxic actions. You will never master this skill if you keep running from your inner wars. Trust me, I get it. The hardest thing for a man to do is to deal with himself, to confront his own emotional pain and trauma so that he can stop inflicting it on others and even himself. But if you keep running from yourself, you will never find the peace you desire. So face your fears and fight the right fight.
So that is amazing. You know what I mean? So he got a whole website of different things like that, man. Go to his YouTube. I'm gonna put his YouTube in the chat. He got a lot of different things in there that's really, really blessing for men. You know what I mean? And it's a lot of wisdom. So let me share this. Share the screen. I gotta do this every time, right? Tab. This is the website right here. Well, the YouTube. All right. So go on there. He got a lot of different lot of wisdom dealing with social, emotional issues, and dealing with a lot of trauma that we as young men and old men deal with on a daily basis, right? So he has a lot of wisdom, and salute to him and his effort. You know what I mean? He lost his brother, and so he had a lot going on, man. But he turned it around, and he didn't let it take him out. You know what I mean? And so he used it for good. He used it for blessing his community. He used it for blessing his the brothers and sisters around him, but especially the brothers, the young men, the older men. And so what I'm gonna do is I'm going to play this Waging the War Within, and then I'm gonna glean on it a little bit. Share a little bit. Again, if you ain't got a subscription to Scrib, you need to get a subscription because this is dope. So I'm gonna play a little bit of this audio, and then we're gonna glean on some of it, man. See what's going on with it. All right. So let me play it. Let's check out what he got to say.
To every man who is tired of not living, don't give up. Introduction. It's deeply saddening to see so many good men, even the strong, on the verge of giving up. No one wants to be the problem all the time. Zadik Ariya. It's too late for me to change. I want to cry, but I can't. I'll look weak if I express how I really feel. I'm tired of always being the problem. Life is no longer worth living. I hear heart-rending statements like these every day from men who are suffering in silence, condemning themselves as if they were never allowed to make a mistake. Although they long to express their emotions, the fear of being wrong again or impassively dismissed is enough to tame their desire to be human. Then there's the other extreme of men who repress their childhood trauma instead of releasing it. Subsequently, they perceive every opposing opinion or minor altercation as disrespect and quickly meet it with an intemperate reaction. Instead of swatting away the mosquito, these men wait for it to land on a glass table, then kill it with a sledgehammer. They are willing to risk it all to be heard and to be right. I know both men very well because I used to morph between the two. For decades, I was a slave to my erratic emotions. Instead of calmly articulating my feelings regarding an offense, I would yell in order to hide that I had been hurt. In the early years of our marriage, my wife, Nicole, and I often got into heated arguments. One afternoon, my emotional instability triggered a strong reaction in me. Our daughter, Alexis, 11 at the time, was upstairs watching television while Nicole and I were in the basement. As our arguing intensified, I walked away to escape Nicole's quick-witted responses, but to no avail. She followed me into the laundry room. I yelled, "Why don't you just let me be the man and follow my lead?" With hands on her hips, Nicole sharply responded, "Why don't you lead like one?" Because I love Nicole deeply, her words hit me as if she had taken a hammer to my chest and shattered my heart. But my ego would not allow me to express the emotional pain I felt, so I stomped up the stairs and punched a hole in the wall. Nicole uttered sarcastically, "Wow, that's great." Enraged at her response, I shouted, "I'll punch holes in all these expletive walls." Within seconds, I punched 5 holes in the stairwell walls. When I reached the top of the stairs, the sight of fear in my beloved daughter's eyes sobered my soul and made it clear. I'd lost control. After taking time to decompress, Nicole and I reconciled, but because I hadn't dealt with the root cause of our conflict, the peace in our home was brief. As I look back on all this now, I realized the problem was that I was emotionally incarcerated. I shared in my book, Cry Like a Man, that my emotional incarceration meant I was isolated and disconnected from emotions that threatened to consume me. And sadly,
I had been this way since my youth. Our culture admonishes boys for being emotional and promotes the idea that a real man is strong at all times. As a result, boys become men who cannot be vulnerable or transparent with their true feelings. Emotions then become like ping pong balls underwater. You can only hold them down for so long before one pops up unexpectedly and often uncontrollably. Due to the influence of popular culture, men believe they are not allowed to be afraid or feel fear. So instead of contemplating why we are scared, we suppress that emotion because of a deeper fear of being perceived as pusillanimous, timid, and spineless. Yet every man at some point in his life will be afraid, especially when he has children. As one of my friends once stated, our children are like watching our hearts walk around outside of our bodies. Every mature man admits this is true, but until we are courageously transparent with our feelings, our sons will follow in our footsteps and try to be what they perceive us to be, willing to risk their lives and lineage for the sake of appearing brave. I was deeply moved by Mufasa's transparency in Disney's classic movie, The Lion King, after he watched his only beloved son, Simba, recklessly risk his life trying to prove he was courageous. Simba had assumed that kings were never scared because he never saw his father show fear. But Mufasa knew that if he did not share the truth in the moment, Simba would die young and bring an end to their kingdom. Son, I'm only brave when I have to be, Mufasa said. But you're not scared of anything, Simba responded. I was today. You were? Simba was clearly surprised by his father's admission. I thought I might lose you. This priceless moment between father and son not only transformed Simba's mindset, but also laid a solid foundation for his future. I know numerous men who still to this day believe their sons should never see them cry or be afraid of anything. This dangerous ideology has produced not only generations of men imprisoned by their emotions, but also early graves. With most men unable to express their emotions in healthy ways, the result we're seeing now is depression, divorce, high-risk behaviors, broken families, and violence. Futures erased, wounded hearts, despair. There is freedom when you allow yourself to feel fear or any emotion that's not considered traditionally masculine. The problem is, we become imprisoned when we succumb to thoughts that keep us from resolutely walking in our purpose. As a man thinks about himself, so he will be. Proverbs chapter 23, verse 7. And it isn't until we actively engage our emotions that we will be able to release negative thoughts before they become toxic actions. In the United States, men die by suicide 3.5 times more often than women, and men commit 75.6% of violent crimes. Unfortunately, many people mistakenly believe that men were created to be aggressive and violent, but the truth is that most of us were programmed to process and release our emotional pain in destructive ways. Imagine how many good men would still be living today if they had taken a moment to feel and acknowledge their emotions, instead of dismissing them until they lost control. The high cost of emotional suppression. It's 5 a.m. on Friday, April 10th, 2020, and I'm sitting in my office alone. The entire planet is in the midst of the coronavirus pandemic. At the time of this book's writing, there have been more than 12.4 million cases and more than 257,000 deaths related to COVID-19 in the United States. We don't know when the pandemic will end. The world is reeling, and my beloved Detroit is now ranked third in the country for coronavirus deaths. No one in my home has contracted this deadly virus, but our family has lost several loved ones to COVID-19. The sadness, fear, and trauma are palpable. From sporting events to Hollywood, entertainment has been disrupted. There seems to be no escape, no distraction for our souls and minds. As a result, I receive numerous direct messages daily from emotionally distressed men. distressed not by the fear of dying from COVID-19, but by having to be quarantined with their own fears for an indefinite period of time. And unfortunately, lawyers across the country have reported receiving an unprecedented number of divorce requests since families were ordered to remain inside their homes during the pandemic. When we hide or deny our negative emotions, they become toxic and fester like infectious wounds. We can only pretend for so long before something erupts, causing regret, shame, and relational turmoil. If we never address the root cause of our pain, our internal wounds will breed like cancer cells. And then, when we're finally forced to face them, we'll start to self-destruct. Warrior, your relationships are at stake. Your health is at stake. Your future is at stake. You must act now and fight for your life with all vigilance. For far too long, I allowed the emergencies of others to take precedence over my own needs. My entire life revolved around helping other people and neglecting myself. I unknowingly based my existence on what I did for others instead of who I was. This birthed resentment in my heart and sapped my desire to live. Drinking beer became psychotherapy, and anger was the only emotion I could express.
Wow. Wow. That's a lot to unpack right there, man. Very, very lot to unpack, man. Yeah, like I said, man, you should get this book, audio book if possible, so you can listen to it over and over. And every time I hear it, I get different things about what he's talking about in there, man. And he's talking about escaping emotional incarceration, right? You know what an incarcerated person is like, but to be incarcerated on the inside, right? Isolated, he said, isolated and disconnected. Do you ever feel that way? Some men feel isolated and disconnected, right? And that's why I always say, man, you can be in a room full of people and still be by yourself, okay? And then he's saying a lot of men suffer in silence, right? It's the highest. Men got the highest rate of suicide. Men got the highest rate of incarceration because they suffering in silence. A lot of times, not every time, but a lot of times, women have support groups when they're going through trauma or traumatic experiences. But we have the macho bravado of never let them see you sweat, and you can't look weak, and suck it up, and you know what I mean, different things like that. And so we are suffering on the inside. I think one of the things that he said that's very, very interesting in the beginning, he was talking about it's a lot of men he heard said this: it's too late for me to change. I want to cry, but I can't. I'll look weak if I express how I really feel. I'm tired of always being the problem. And then you hear a lot of stuff like life is no longer worth living. So depression is real. The different things that we go through as men is real, and it should never get to the point of suicide. You know, talk to somebody. You know, the Ruach know you better than you know yourself. So if you can't reach out to no physical person, process with somebody, process with the Ruach, right? He knows exactly what you're going through. Amen. Okay. So basically, he was saying also other extreme. Wait a minute. He said people perceive every opposing opinion as disrespect. We see that a lot in our community. People perceiving opposing opinions as disrespect. We can't agree to disagree. We can't articulate and communicate and agree to disagree. You know what I mean? And it's I don't know if it's an ego thing or what, but even in our community, a lot of time, you know, the Ruach, Holy Ghost showed me this, and the Holy Ghost showed you something different. Holy Ghost showed him something different. Well, all three of them can't be right. So somebody they ain't being led by the Spirit, right? So you guys ain't led by the Spirit. I am, not you guys. You know what I'm saying? And we don't reason, we don't understand. A lot of times, sometimes, not all the time, people are saying the same thing, but it's just a different way. Where they're coming from a different perspective, a different angle. And they're saying really the same thing. And it's really, at the end of the day, not about being right, but it's about being righteous. It's really about him getting the glory. You know what I mean? At the end of the day, it's not about our egos or our reputation. It's really about the Most High. Yeah. So we risk it all to be heard and to be right, is what I was saying. And we are a slave to erratic emotions, right? Pressure bust pipes, right? If we like, oh, I'm good, I'm fine, I'm well, and then and if it ain't got no constant flow, what happens when a pressure is applied in a pipe, whether it's gas, whether it's water, whether it's liquid, whatever, that it comes out the side. Pressure always busts pipes, right? So we have to have a release. We have to be able to de-escalate. We got to be able to deal and not have these erratic emotions, because we have erratic emotions, we have erratic communication, and we won't be able to communicate and articulate well with each other. We are Imago Dei. We are created in His image and His likeness, and we should be able to communicate as such, right? And look at another thing you're talking about. A real man is strong at all times, right? That's not true to say a real man is strong at all times. Boys who cannot be vulnerable, or men, they become angry. They have it be a built up resentment. You can't be strong at all times, right? You might need a shoulder to lean on. You know what I mean? When you weak, and so if you just tough and strong at all times, never let them see you sweat. Well, man, we're not built like that. You know what I mean? And so early grave, a lot of the sicknesses, a lot of the health conditions are dealt with the stresses that we deal with. Lack of basic exercise, lack of basic sleep, lack of water, drinking basic water, you know what I'm saying? And so a lot of these different things and will affect us as men, and it would affect our communication. It would affect our how we process, right? Not allowed to be afraid or feel fear. Instead, we are contemplating why we are scared over our emotions. Okay, there's a fear of being perceived of being timid and spineless or weak. There's a fear of being perceived as weak. You know what I mean? So you faking it like you got it all together, like you're stronger than what you are, but you're not. All right, and that's a high cost of emotional suppression. It's a very high cost to emotional suppression. And he basically was saying, look, relationships at stake, your health, mental, physical, and spiritual health is at stake. Your future is at stake, right? Whether you're here, whether you're incarcerated, because you made a split decision that can alter and change your whole jive in 3 seconds. You can make a decision to change your whole situation in little or no time, under a minute, under 30 seconds. Change your whole jive, right? And it's at stake. You can lose a lot. You got a lot to lose. And a lot of time when you build a building, it takes years. It takes time to build it. It takes time to build that structure, lay that foundation first and build it. But it don't take but a second to destroy it. I don't know if you ever seen a demolition implosion, destroy a building. It don't take but a second to destroy. It'd be less than a minute and it'd be destroyed, right? But it take a longer time to build. So we don't want to lose or have risk of losing everything that we work hard for, or how far the Most High have brought us, because we can't articulate our feelings right, or we got emotional incarceration going on within us. We gotta be able to communicate, right? Okay, and we're more than just supposed to be aggressive and violent beings, because that we got these toxic things going on the inside of us, right? Right. So basically, this word I looked up: introspective, winning the introspective war on the inside. Introspective means self-examining, self-analyzing, and inward looking. Self-examining, self-analyzing, and inward looking. Introspective, right? So we got to communicate and we got to be able to keep composure. But I'm gonna play this last 4 minutes of this book. It's really, really powerful. last 4 minutes of this part of the book, because it's 14 chapters, and I want to glean and go through each one, and I'm gonna have different brothers come on. We're gonna chop it up, a process about the emotional incarceration that men deal with, and especially African American men as well. We deal with a lot of suppression that can lead to violence, toxic behaviors. It can lead to depression. It can lead to suicide. It can lead to homicide. So that's why it leads to homicide, because there's a lot of pent up different things going on the inside of us, and it's condescending. If you think about it, young men, we're the most suspended. We are the most expelled, because we don't know how to articulate or communicate. We got the condescending languages, in school. And sometimes, it do be us. We got to learn how to talk to people. We got to learn how to deal. But sometimes it could be out of our hands. A folk talking reckless and crazy to you at school, and a young boy be like, "Nah, I ain't taking that." Then you say, "Forget it, I'm out of here." Then they drop out of school. Then you go to the streets, and then people are condescending tone. You got the police talking crazy. You know what I'm saying? And sometimes folks don't take it. So you got to be able to have control over your emotions, how to process, how to deal, how to articulate, how to listen to what that person is saying. I don't want to go ahead in the chapter and in the book, but we got to be able to learn how to listen, and not just listening for a response, but listening, being a good listener. And that's what I'm trying to learn how to do to these past few months, trying to be a good listener, trying to understand, because it be some erratic behavior and cats I don't understand. And it's not all me, but then sometimes it's not all them. Sometimes it is me. So I got to figure out what's going on. Why there's a loss of communication? What happened? So let's finish listening to this last 4 minutes of this book, and then we're gonna wrap it up till next time.
My unreleased toxic thoughts turned into destructive actions that I regret to this day. When a man cannot introspectively confront his negative thoughts and emotions, he will always be conquered by them, communicating without composure and hurting those he loves. It wasn't my family or my friends who were responsible for my lack of self-love. It was years of living with unresolved trauma that triggered my unhealthy mental state. Winning the introspective war. Is it worth the fight? It has been said that no matter where you go, there you will be. In other words, we cannot escape ourselves. Therefore, it's imperative that we learn how to wage and win the introspective war. We need to examine our own mental and emotional states so we can release emotional pain and trauma before we inflict them on others. Warrior, if you are hurting and hiding, tired of not being able to say you're tired, weak, but without the confidence to be strong, but with nowhere to go when you're weak, I want you to know there is a life to live beyond the limitations of what you've been programmed to believe it means to be a man. I don't claim to have all the answers, but I am a living testimony that you can win this battle. Like me, you must be willing to fight to unlearn what you've been deceived to believe. Since this war is not just mental, but also spiritual, you will notice that I refer to Jesus by his Hebrew name, Yahushua, and God the Father as Yah, short form of YHWH, or Yahuwah. And I'll reference scriptures throughout. Without Yah and his word, I would have lost my mind a long time ago and forfeited the fulfilling life I am living today. Please know my goal is not to proselytize, but to give you the weapons of warfare that have worked for me and many other men. The introspective war is one you will have to fight daily for the rest of your life. So it would take more than faith to win the war within. You will also need to be a man of action, proactively taking captive every negative emotion before it enslaves you. 2 Corinthians chapter 10, verse 5. In the chapters ahead, I will show you how to do this through stories from my own life and the lives of boys and men I have trained through this process. We'll also dismantle the myths that surround masculinity and keep men imprisoned. But first, You have to believe that freedom from emotional incarceration is attainable. My intention is not only to empower you with the skills needed to break free, but also prove that it is possible for a man to live from the good in his heart and not his fears, regardless of how hopeless life appears right now. Second, you must understand that this war is not won overnight. It is a journey. In fact, there is no arriving at perfection. There is only continued healing and growth. The process of taking hold of your freedom requires examining your unresolved trauma and reflecting on how it negatively affects the way you view yourself, your relationships, and your everyday life. You will need to release any toxic emotions that come up during your self-examination. This will require gut-level honesty with yourself and others. But I promise that the future you can step into as a result is better than you can imagine. Are you ready to fight and win the war that will change your life? If so, gather yourself mentally, physically, and emotionally as I take you down the narrow path of training that will empower you to break through what you've been through. 1.
All right, praise Yah, man. So that's the first part, man. Very, very informative. Every time I hear it, I glean more information off of it. One thing that he said is very, very important in closing. Freedom is obtainable. You can do this. You can win the introspective war, the war within. You can win that war with the Ruach. The Bible, Yahushua said, the greater is he that is within me than he that was in the world. And I can do all things through Yahushua who strengthens me. So it's obtainable. So I want you to approach this with hope and faith, and you can do it. Again, that was Brother Jason Wilson. Well, the book Battle Cry, Waging and Winning the War Within. And so we definitely will be breaking down each chapter. It might take the whole year. I doubt it, but because we're gonna get through it. But we want to do some encouragement and some power. We've been dealing with a lot of trauma in our neighborhood and the trauma in our community, right? If you look at the old brothers, the old men sitting there playing checkers and chess, 60, 70, 80 years old, that's 80 years of trauma that they had to deal with. Sometimes suppression, sometimes had to deal with different things that we take for granted, that we think I ain't gonna take it, you know what I mean? Well, if they would have said that, they wouldn't be here, and I'm not saying being a coward, but you got to know how to maneuver and navigate and know what to say, when to say it, and how to say it. You know what I'm saying? So Elephant Man Podcast, grown man conversation dealing with elephants in the room. Subscribe, like, share, and we are out of here. Perfect.